My name is Luboš Kocman. I'm based in Czech Republic, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how did we actually build Leap 15.3, how it was built and released. And this is supposed to be sort of high-level talk rather than technical, and just have discussion with people who are interested in the topic. So something about me, so you know what I'm doing for SUSE. I joined SUSE about 2.5 years ago, and I joined the what's called SUSE's lead technical project management team. So I'm a project manager, and you know, recently for about, I don't know, last 18 months, I'm actually release manager for openSUSE Leap. So I was doing Leap 15.2 and Leap 15.3. And what is the job about? It's about overseeing the work on Leap, making sure that, you know, Leap as a release has all the expected changes in, that we release it on time, and that, you know, with some stable quality. And also, like, I'm representing openSUSE voice on every single planning meeting for SUSE Linux Enterprise or any sort of discussions, and making sure that, you know, community has also voice when we discuss changes and so on. So that would be kind of my responsibilities. I'm not sure if you know openSUSE, but there is not just a single distribution. We actually have multiple. I'm not sure if I want to count Cubic and MicroOS and so on, but generally there are two main distributions. The original distribution is Leap, and then we have Tumbleweed, which is a rolling distribution. So some people, you know, may actually find Leap like moving too slow with updates. So therefore, I would recommend Tumbleweed. People who are looking for something which is like, you know, 12 months release cycle, maybe 18 months of overlap support for each service pack, and maybe 90 months of support of the code stream in general, then Leap would be, you know, a way to go. So, and since I said that I'm release manager for Leap, I'm going to talk about how we actually built openSUSE Leap, not Tumbleweed itself. Building distribution the SUSE way. In openSUSE Leap 15.2 timeframe around beta, we've actually got approached by, you know, a proposal to rework distribution completely. So basically, we would offer, you could say, sleep for free, but we also wanted to, you know, has some sort of flexibility to incorporate some of the product configuration changes so they work better with the community software that otherwise is not available in SUSE Linux Enterprise. And that's roughly 8,000 packages that we have extra, and therefore we actually needed some flexibility. So actually we did it our way, and let's have a look at what's so special about this release. So as I said, it's completely rebuilt. So now we are actually using SLEE binaries. So we simply take pre-built packages and then we mix it with, you know, like community software, which we rebuilt on top of these SLEE packages. We add some extra branding that will be displayed on the next slide on the diagram. So this is probably the largest change in the release. So it's actually under the hood, not that much visible for the user. And the special, I guess, special about the release is also the timing, right? Because we never had such pandemic situation before. So you could say people work remotely all the time, you know, it's just GitHub reviews and so on. But there's also a lot of interaction with people discussing proposal issues, you know, meeting each other on conferences, talking about what we would like to change. And we didn't have that anymore. So this was also a little bit special about this release, and we had to figure out a way how to solve it, which I will talk about later. And you know, like this release had the longest possible party that we've had. It was more than 182 hours. Then somebody had to restart our Jitsi instance, so the counter was reset. But this was the max amount of hours that people were online, you know, discussing, exchanging all the time, and just cheering. So one of the changes is also that we switched the web page that's used to actually get the DVDs or ISO images online. And the testing, you know, testing section of the download page had a yellow color, and in the end, we kind of liked it. So, you know, it went through marketing and artwork team, and then voila, the Leap box actually turned out yellow for the first time ever. And this release, since we actually now rely on SUSE SLEE packages, as you've heard, we also have to make somehow improve collaboration, because if you depend on someone, you really want to have, you know, like more discussion, more ways how both groups can actually influence the product, and, you know, like basically find the most out of the current bonds that we have with community and enterprise part. So I promised you diagram. So here is one very simple that I actually found on the recommended article below. It's about closing the leap gap, which was basically effort to eliminate changes in between leap and SLE down to some agreed changes, which are, like branding. And for example, we have different default LLVM, which was kind of agreed to keep this way. But if it boils down to 4,000 base packages in the system, they're actually already coming from SLE. So this can be seen on this part. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse cursor. So this is basically base of leap. So we just basically sync it over to the public build system, and then we actually use these RPMs. We add branding on top of that and some of our configuration, which is specific for leap. And then we rebuild the community, a software in project that we refer to as backports. And this is basically, this project is rebuilding roughly 8,000 packages plus. And these packages are then made available to SLE without rebuilding, as we used to do it before, through a package hub module. So at some point, I would say that the way how we built the distribution got a little bit more complex, especially the update setup. And you may have noticed that if you already installed Leap, that we have additional repositories that contain basically updates for SLE, updates for backports. So this extra flexibility that we can, like basically tweak the system configuration rather than just offering SLE for free without any changes also has a price, and that's the complexity of the build out of pre-built artifacts. So if you really want to, I don't want to really go into details because we could spend hours on that. But if you want to read a little bit more about it, like just Google either closing the leap gap, which is the effort to eliminate the differences, or just look for the article about how SUSE builds distribution, and it's the part 5, which is basically talking about how we approach this problem to actually reuse the binaries. So one thing which is super important right now, so the openSUSE Leap 15.3 is out since June 2nd. And we still have open survey until, I believe, I wrote tonight, but I feel like it's open until 6:30 a.m. tomorrow for people from, like different time zones. That may be a difference. And I would really appreciate any sort of feedback that you can give me to the release. And basically, the entire openSUSE release team then processes the feedback. We will do that publicly on the openSUSE conference, talk about things that didn't go too well, talk about things that we actually find like very useful, that were improvement in this release. Just make sure that we can do next release a little bit better. Now let's talk about how it was actually done. So I mentioned that, we have pandemic situation, we have less and less ways how to kind of meet each other. And, we started this bar, which is a virtual room on our Jitsi instance where people can just join anytime. There's usually at least 1 or 2 people hanging around. Doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m., 1 a.m., 5 p.m. Since it's people from different time zones, there's always someone. And if you want to kind of start with openSUSE, maybe start collaborating, I don't know, be it marketing, translations, writing patches, submitting new packages, like always go there, ask people, and they will point you wherever you need to kind of do your next step. And yeah, the screenshot that you can see is actually from the celebration that was, I believe, our 8th, you can see it on the counter if it's not too small for you. It was 80 hours of the release party. So in about half when the Jitsi got restarted later on. And it was pretty cool. People are just discussing stuff, just cheering up, which is what we need nowadays, the social part. And that's basically, we have 20 minutes in total, right? We were shortened by 5. And I really didn't want to go to details, but rather like allow people to ask questions, either be it about Leap or anything that I may be kind of aware of on my position. If you're interested in the job itself, feel free to shoot anything. Like there are no bad questions, so don't be afraid. I can, if nobody asks questions, then I can maybe kind of suggest some topics that we can discuss. We have about, how much time do we have left, Martin? Is it 10 minutes?
We have actually plenty of time. We have still 17 minutes.
So what do we want to discuss, guys? Like, is there somebody who did not use openSUSE yet? and maybe kind of struggling like with which of our two distributions is the main one for our preferred one for his use case. So do we have like raising hands? Like, is there somebody who didn't use openSUSE yet? No, I don't really see chat. Let me maybe turn off the presentation so you can actually see me.
Nothing in chat yet.
Okay, I'm just thinking what could be interesting for you. For example, the way the tools that we use, I feel like this is something that even if you use Leap, you may not be actually aware of the underlying pieces that we use to build and distribute Leap. And so our core for building distributions, especially for SUSE, was always open build service, and the open build service in combination with its what I feel is special compared to others is the basically full rebuild functionality. So you update certain library, there is auto detection of what else needs to be rebuilt, then it happens. And Leap until 15.3 was very special by actually rebuilding everything, literally everything, every single time when there was like a change that triggered this chain rebuild or whatever we want to call it. And this is something that we kind of had to change because if you have actually static binaries that you just sync over at some point in time, actually that some point in time means when the build finishes, we just take binaries, we sync them, so it's kind of almost instant. But you cannot rebuild these, right? If something changes in the stack above that. So there was quite a lot of work actually to get this working together. Actually, I actually said that it has increased complexity, which can be also seen on the pace of the builds. So we cannot, like usually we could do maybe one build a day. Well, if there was full rebuild, let's say 2 days. Now it's more like one build a week, 2 builds a week if there is not many changes. So, it affects also the way how we develop and test the distribution, because with every build that we trigger, we also run like a huge test suite in OpenQA, which is another big I would call it signature tool for openSUSE. And you run the GNOME test suite, you run the migration test suite from other releases, and it has to pass. And if it doesn't, then we wait for the build and fixes coming to the build that will actually fix the issues. Unless we can say, well, these are fine to have, it's beta phase. We will simply not block release development on these changes, because there's a bunch of other patches that are also waiting for being tested, right? So I would say that OpenQA and Open Build Service and their combination is kind of very unique in the world of Linux distributions. So this would be the signature tools that we use. Is there somebody who didn't hear about Open Build Service before? No. If you didn't, definitely check it out. Like I came from the another Linux kind of company, and we had build system which was like very RPM centric. Like I feel open build service is also, like you can build pretty much every single image there, which is kind of really neat with Kiwi. And that was something that that I found like is amazing. It's basically a single tool which, like for us, it handles publishing as well, not just building, because the lead builds, we do not use any sort of service like Suma, Satellite, or Spacewalk, if you want to call it like that, to distribute these packages, but rather it's just on FTP, right? So this is something that Open Build Service can do for us, and with a bunch of cron jobs, which are then syncing data in between, staging server, production server, but this is all details. So these would be the signature tools. Since the topic is how we built Leap 15.3, one of the cool things that I mentioned is that we are improving the collaboration, or trying to improve the collaboration with the community. So, based on my current experience, I released just 2 releases, right? 15.2, 15.3. But in 15.2, every single time when we received incoming submission, it was trying to touch one of the packages which were actually shipped in sleep. We always rebuild these packages, but we always try to make sure that sources are, the same. And therefore, we usually said the change needs to come from SLE side, but it was sort of dead end. And the people who were external who were not SUSE employees did have like very few ways how to change it. You could open bug, maybe submit a patch or so. There was nothing like being able to submit the change directly to SLE. And basically with this release, you can do that. We can mirror submissions from outside the external open build service, build openSUSE.org, to the internal one. And I feel like this is a big step forward. Because we don't have to say, well, it has to come from SLE. We can say, well, you can submit it to SLE. You know, it will need probably a few approvals and so on, but it's doable. And this I see as a big step. Also, we started to plan, you know, larger changes ahead of the time, which may be seen as too much of processes and so on. But you know, like it's you need to connect these two worlds, the community and enterprise. And at some point, it's about finding a balance in between, you know, being able to plan ahead. And, you know, if it's something that triggers rebuild of half of the distribution, we should probably have it implemented with alpha, not necessarily RC or, you know, 3 weeks before GA of the product. So the planning gets more and more important. The, you know, changes in openSUSE Leap, basically, if you submit anything up until, let's say, RC, it's pretty much fine. Like you shouldn't probably delete packages after beta because people have some expectations already. But like version updates and so on, if it's community packages, like this is perfectly fine. And then you have RC phase to stabilize it. With SLE, it gets a little bit more tricky. And, you know, we really have to plan ahead. And that's something that we are doing for 15.4. And if you are openSUSE Leap user, you can actually join the effort. If you search for openSUSE Leap 15 for planning, I'm sure you will find mailing list posts and the wiki page which has the changes. So this is what I see as a collaboration, which may have not been there like a year ago, 2 years ago. So definitely things are actually moving to the direction which I like with the model that we chose for Leap. I feel it makes sense.
I was actually wondering, do we know if there are some companies that are shipping Leap with their hardware? Because in past it used to be the case.
Tuxedo, right, has laptops with pre-installed Leap if you actually choose to, for example. Like, I'm not sure if it's the default system that they offer, but there is an option actually to have Leap pre-installed on Tuxedo hardware. And I know that there was one hardware partner, we always have it in the, so we have something called release management checklist or the GitHub repo is called openSUSE release process, and there is actually pinging of one hardware partner about certain changes or maybe schedule. So I can imagine that somebody is doing it.
I know that in past, actually, there was also a case with some ARM board manufacturers. I'm not sure if it was, I think, Strong Iron, or what was the name? Something with iron. They were shipping Leap for ARM, or actually maybe Tumbleweed. I'm not sure now.
Tumbleweed will probably be easier to actually enable new devices. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but they are getting stable nowadays. It's not so experimental anymore.
Is there somebody, by the way, on the talk or in this room who is using something else than Intel? Like it could be Raspberry Pi or something. Luna, I would expect that at least you will have some Raspberry Pi device. No? Okay. I was just
recent
thinking.
Macs.
Oh yeah, right. But I'm not sure how much is Leap supported there. I would expect that you will have more luck with Tumbleweed. I had the same experience with my laptop. Like, you know, I could at least get some boot messages on Tumbleweed, but with Leap, it was with 15.2, I believe. That was very difficult. Ah, I see the chat. No, I'm using Intel. Okay. Well, I use Juice with library, like, but then was, and you can talk, Luna. Don't, or can you not unmute? I'm not sure. Like, if it's not only for co-host.
I can, or you can, as a co-host, you can ask to unmute people.
Okay.
By default, people are muted so that they don't accidentally interrupt. But you can. There is a button in the participant list that's like ask to unmute.
Ah, I can talk.
Ah, you can do that. Okay, so feel free to talk. Yeah.
I use Raspberry Pi, use LibreLect that uses EOS, but that's mostly just an image
we call it Juice, like just enough operating system. So now you know how to say it.
Yeah, but that's just an auto starting Kodi and an image you flash, and not
that makes
much
sense.
you do yourself in the background.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But that project is using use in the background.
Yeah. I'm actually seeing personally, like based on the retrospective, that ARM is getting more and more on popularity because the feedback that we are getting is, and also we were thinking of, so in the past, even in 15.2, well, with 15.2 we already claimed that ARM is also like a first-class citizen, but from the point of view of how the distribution was built, the ARM was in a project called ports. And for ports, we didn't have to meet the same schedule, and the builds were actually disconnected. So we would not block, the publishing of the new build on ARM did not build yet. But with 15.3, actually, all the arches that are in SLE, which is Intel, 64-bit Intel, just to make it clear, the ARMv, yeah, RH64, let's say, the S390, PowerPC 64, they are all treated the same. We actually build them in the same standard project. And the only difference compared to 15.2 would be ARMv7. There we actually had to create a bunch of projects like openSUSE Frontrunner to rebuild all of the SLE in the single layer, openSUSE Step to be able to rebuild, SLE in OBS at all. So that was quite an effort, and that's when I mentioned that the builds got more complex, this added on the complexity a lot, and but there was quite a demand actually to preserve ARMv7. So I suppose a lot of people have some Raspberry Pi 2 devices, or maybe even companies that are using some SBCs with ARMv7, and they want to have option to have fleet there.
I'm actually aware that some companies, not sure about openSUSE, but they are really using Raspberry Pis for some serious stuff, which is actually a bit surprising because I think that you can, to be honest, you can get a better ARM board at the same price.
But maybe if you got like thousands of them, for a good price, like then you
yeah, right.
Okay, how much time do we have?
We still have 5 minutes till Jiří's talk.
Yeah, okay.
So let's chat for 5 minutes.
So what I would like to tell you is some initial feedback that I actually got from retrospective before, the openSUSE conference. Maybe just talk numbers. I don't want to kind of say what's in there because then I influence what you can potentially add to the retrospective. So as of now, I feel like we have 493 or 96 responses, which is quite a lot. Like in last release, it was lower 400s. So I expect to actually, like, if it's really going to be until morning tomorrow, over 600 responses, which will take me probably 2 weeks to process. If we want to do it, categorize it and so on. That's basically what it took me last time. And I already see like that the upgrade and migrations will be like the main topic because we are like doing really significant change. If you are not aware, the openSUSE Leap is actually using, I believe, like all of the openSUSE distributions are using the vendor stickiness, which is something that Fedora would like to use as well, which means if you are actually exchanging vendor of the RPM, let's say openSUSE to SUSE, or maybe somebody's devel project, that has another key that's signing the packages, you will actually be asked to change that. And since we are replacing about 4,000 packages or vendor for 4,000 packages, there are ways like how it may not be seamless, especially if you upgrade from, older releases, because we always recommend, if you are running 15.1 for whatever reason, we actually always recommend to update to the previous version and make sure that all updates are applied, because there is, for example, libzip update, which is then taking the keys from the repo data. If you don't have that update, you will be actually asked for, hey, there is a new key, you have to accept it. So I can see that this will be a hot topic because this is an intrusive change, and it's visible because you will suddenly have to reinstall 4,000 packages if you would do full installation, right? It's going to be most likely 800 to 1,000 in typical installation, but that's something that people will notice. This update is somehow, it's big. So I expect that to be the hot topic, and then some of the maintenance issues that we had with the GA should be relatively stabilized now. So that's the themes that I can see in overall. Otherwise, when I was checking clean installs, when I was just browsing, people generally seem to be happy. So that's my first sort of impression from just going through the document. I mean, from the the current retrospective results. And if you will be able, hey Yuri, if you will be able to join the openSUSE conference on the 18th, I believe, then you can actually go through the retrospective with me and see how people like the release. 15.2 was really claimed to be the best lib release so far in the retrospective by users, that everything was smooth. There was not so many changes really. So relatively kind of nice smooth upgrade. Here it was really intrusive release. So yeah, I'm looking forward for the feedback already. Cool, and I guess 2 minutes, so let's give Yuri some time to prep. Yeah, thank you very much, and talk to you probably later in some breakout room.